Picture waking up without an alarm. No meetings, no notifications, no inbox quietly filling while you sleep. You sit up, rub your eyes, and ask yourself one simple question. What do I actually feel like doing today? For almost the entire existence of our species, that wasn't fantasy. That was normal life. For roughly 300,000 years, humans lived as hunter-gatherers, and whatever answer people arrived at each morning looked almost nothing like the structure most of us live inside now. The average modern person will spend around 90,000 hours working, roughly a third of their conscious life. Add commuting, errands, emails, and the strange habit of mentally staying at work even after you leave it, and the number feels even larger. But pull the camera back far enough, and the entire concept of a job starts to look incredibly recent. No resumes, no performance reviews, no corporate ladders, no selling 40 or 50 years of your life one week at a time. So what did humans actually do all day? The evidence is surprisingly consistent. In the 1960s, anthropologist Richard Lee lived with the Dobju Hwansi in Botswana and carefully tracked how adults spent their time. On average, they spent roughly 17 hours a week securing food and basic survival needs, about 2.5 days of labor spread across the week. The rest of the time largely belonged to them. Similar patterns appear among the Hadza in Tanzania, the Ache in Paraguay, the Martu in Australia, and many other foraging societies researchers later studied. In many cases, the basic work of staying alive occupied somewhere between 15 and 20 hours a week. Most modern workers spend more than double that before they even answer a single text after hours. To be fair, none of these groups are frozen windows into the Stone Age. They exist in the modern world and have been shaped by thousands of years of outside pressures. But when archaeologists compare human remains before and after the rise of agriculture around 10,000 years ago, the broader pattern still appears. The transition was physically costly. Early farming populations were often shorter. Their skeletons show more signs of nutritional stress, heavier joint wear from repetitive labor, worse dental health from grain-heavy diets, and higher rates of infectious disease caused by dense settlements and close contact with domesticated animals. Before agriculture, human bodies generally looked stronger, more varied in diet, and less mechanically overworked. But the most revealing evidence isn't found in suffering. It's found in beauty. Inside Chauvet Cave, artists between 30,000 and 36,000 years ago painted lions, horses, rhinos, and mammoths with remarkable movement and perspective. In Blombos Cave, people were crafting shell bead jewelry as far back as 100,000 years ago, traveling miles just to gather the material. In what is now Germany, someone carved a flute from a vulture bone roughly 40,000 years ago. Evidence not just of survival, but music. Again and again, the archaeological record shows humans spending enormous amounts of time creating things that were not strictly necessary for survival. Decorated tools, body ornamentation, musical instruments, stories, symbolic art. Even then, humans were doing something deeply familiar, trying to make life feel meaningful. And that changes how you picture the average day. You wake near sunrise. Someone stirs the fire back to life while others slowly emerge from sleep. Breakfast might be leftover meat, gathered fruit, nuts, or roasted tubers eaten casually while people talk about where food might be found that day. No one clocks in. There's no manager assigning shifts. If supplies are already good, some people may not hunt or forage at all that day. They stay near camp repairing tools, weaving baskets, tanning hides, watching children, joking, resting, or simply sitting together. And contrary to popular imagination, hunting was not constant action movie chaos. Persistence hunting, one of humanity's most effective strategies, often involved slowly tracking prey for hours at a steady pace until the animal physically overheated and collapsed from exhaustion. Demanding, yes, but not necessarily daily. A successful outing might take only a few hours total before people returned, butchered the animal, distributed food through the group, and finished the practical work of the day. By afternoon, survival tasks were often done. What came next may have been the real center of human life: other people. Anthropologist James Sussman observed adults in foraging societies spending enormous amounts of time talking, joking, storytelling, grooming one another, and maintaining relationships. That wasn't wasted time. In a world without banks, insurance, police, or stored wealth, your survival depended heavily on whether other people cared enough about you to share when resources became scarce. Social bonds were infrastructure. After dark, around the fire, the atmosphere changed again. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner found that nighttime conversations among the Zhou Huanzi shifted heavily towards storytelling, myths, ancestors, humor, speculation, social lessons, and explanations about how the world worked. This was where culture deepened. This was where identity formed. This was where people remembered who they were. Even sleep itself followed a different rhythm. Many historians and sleep researchers believe pre-industrial humans often slept in two phases: a first sleep, then a quiet, wakeful period in the middle of the night used for conversation, intimacy, prayer, reflection, or thought, followed by a second sleep before sunrise. A rhythm that feels unusual to us now, mostly because electricity erased darkness itself. None of this was paradise. Infant mortality was brutal. Injuries could become fatal. Violence between groups existed. Parasites, droughts, seasonal hunger, and environmental instability constantly threatened survival. A few bad weeks could change everything. But despite those realities, the overall relationship humans had with time was radically different from our own. Then came agriculture. Roughly 10,000 years ago, humans in places like the Fertile Crescent began planting crops and domesticating animals at scale. Farming extracted far more calories from the same land, which allowed populations to explode. And once populations grew, there was no easy way back. Fields had to be cleared, crops protected, harvests stored, property defended, daily labor intensified. Over time, larger settlements created specialization. Priests, administrators, soldiers, builders, traders, rulers. Eventually, this evolved into the modern arrangement where survival became tied to selling your time. Civilization expanded from that bargain. And to be fair, the bargain produced extraordinary things: writing, medicine, engineering, science, modern sanitation, air travel, the internet, a lifespan no hunter-gatherer population could have imagined. Today, most people live longer, safer, and materially richer lives than almost anyone in the ancient world. But we also inherited agriculture's psychological legacy, the assumption that most of your waking existence must be organized around structured labor. Many people now spend their days inside climate-controlled buildings, staring at glowing rectangles, answering messages while eating lunch, commuting through traffic before sunrise, and feeling vaguely guilty anytime they are not being productive. And what makes this strange is not that humans work. Humans have always worked. What's strange is how completely work now dominates identity, attention, and time. For most of human history, life was not organized around maximizing output. The point here is not that humanity should abandon civilization and disappear into the wilderness. That world is gone for almost all of us, and it came with hardships most modern people would never willingly accept. The point is perspective. Our species spent roughly 99% of its existence living in a completely different psychological relationship with labor, leisure, creativity, and community than the one many people experience now. We were not designed for endless optimization. We were not built to experience every idle moment as guilt. We were not meant to measure our worth almost entirely through economic output. And maybe that explains why so many people feel permanently exhausted despite living in the most technologically advanced society in history. We can't recreate the ancient world, but we can recover parts of its rhythm, defend unstructured time, protect deep friendships, spend time outside, make art even when it isn't profitable, tell stories, cook slowly, sit around with people you love without multitasking. Resist the idea that every waking hour has to justify itself financially. Our ancestors didn't postpone living until retirement. They lived first, and they worked only as much as necessary to keep that life going. The trade that created modern civilization was made thousands of years ago. We inherited both its miracles and its costs. What we still control is how much of ourselves we hand over to the machine, and whether we remember that beneath schedules, deadlines, and productivity metrics, humans are still the same deeply social, creative creatures sitting around ancient fires trying to make meaning out of a short life together.